text. I'm going to give you guys a text that you're going to be using to do that. Then you're just going to do some little visualizations on the data. So okay, so I'm going to work with one person's data. Let me see which person's data I can work with today. Okay. So today we're just going to be looking at how we can actually visualize this particular data we're working with. Right, okay. Okay. All right, so I'll be working with Mauritius data. I think is kind of well organized for me to follow through. So we're just going to be doing some brief visualizations, right? The main part of visualization I want us to touch it. We're going to be building a complete dashboard in Excel. And in Power BI. So that's why I want us to really learn how to do visualizations and dashboards, right? But for today, I'm going to be doing some part of these visualizations, right? While in the assignment I'll be giving you guys for Excel, you guys will bring everything we've learned together, right? Everything we've learned together into that particular assignment.
Okay.
Right. So you might want to mute because I think the background
Yes,
noise.
okay.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking at how we can do some level of visualizations in our data. So I will let me see where she has a pivot table. Okay, I think I will use mine. I'll use a different one. Okay. So I will just create a pivot table out of it. So basically we want to just see let me understand why I have too many of this. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to create a pivot table from this, and I'm looking at how I can just build. So I don't think I'm going to go direct and building my dashboard. So, but for yours, you might want to do a pivot table. But for mine, I don't really have to. So I want to copy this and go to a new sheet and maybe paste it here. Okay. So I'm going to explain why I'm doing this way. Then I will just expand. So why I'm doing this way is I want to put a slicer, right? So that I can easily edit the table or the charts, basically, right? So what I want to do is I want to insert a chart, right? So let me see, do we have any location-based stuff here? Okay. So I'm going to go home. Can I change this to location? Okay, no. So we just want to answer, do some basic visualizations for our data set, like we want to probably build a card, insert a card, something that just shows the amount of people or employees we have in the company. Then we also want to visualize for the amount of seasons, right? Though this season might not really make sense here. It might make sense in the data set I'll be giving you guys. And I'll be telling you guys the kind of questions to answer, right? That particular data set, we are also going to use it to learn Power BI while I give you another data set that you work on for your minutes. Okay. Okay, so we're also going to do a line chart for this month. Okay, do a line chart for the month. We want to see. So basically, in this data, the line chart for the month might not really make sense, right? Because we don't really need to see line chart for the amount of employees. So that line chart might make sense in viewing sales trend over the years, which is something we're also going to work on in Power BI. Then we also might want to look at the races we have in the company, which race is the highest. We want to visualize all that. But first of all, I'm going to bring in a slicer. Okay. So this slicer is, I want to decide what I want to use for filtering my data. So I will choose, let's say gender. I will choose race. Department might be much. I think we have a lot of department. I'll choose location and location city. So I'll just use this for, right? So why I'm using this slicer is just like if you go to your WhatsApp and you're looking for someone's number and the, you type the person's name. Just instead of scrolling up and down, you just type the person's name on your search bar. The search bar automatically filters all your chats to that particular person or anywhere that person's name has been mentioned, right? So that's the use of filter. Filter just allows us to bypass all the stress of looking and scrolling up and down, right? So I'll add these 4 filters here. Okay, so we have the 4 filters here. Okay, then I have location here. I'll just minimize this. Then the race. So I want to put location city here. So since location city is a lot, so I might have to delete it, remove. Right, it's a lot. There are quite a lot of it there. So I might put location, just race. Then I want to change the view. Okay. I want to change it to have probably 3 columns. So we have, okay, so it will be arranged this way. Okay. Then just to manage the space we have here, then I'll bring this gender here. So I'm just doing it to manage the space so it doesn't occupy so much, right? Then, so if I click on headquarters, right? So let's look at what this filter does. I click on headquarters, it shows me only employees that are located at the headquarters, right? So if you look at it here, only headquarters employees showing here, right? If I click only on remote, it shows me only employees. It filters to only employees that are working remotely. Okay, so that's just the use of the filters basically. Then if I'll just cancel this filter, it returns everything back. Then I click on Asian, it shows me only employees that are of the Asian race. I click on Africans, it shows me only employees that are Black Africans. If we look at this side, so that it keeps changing. I click on white, shows me only employees that are white. So that's just the use of filters, basically. Right. Then I want to now visualize my data. So definitely I'm going to select all the data sets I have. So I'm just doing basic visualizations because here I just want us to learn the idea behind making a visual. You really need to ask questions before you jump into making visuals. So let's say we want to visualize basic things in our data set, like we want to see this race in a bar chart, we want to see the location in a bar chart, gender in a bar chart, right? See the amount of employees they have that are born in a particular month. Okay, so I'll come here and click on, let's say, a pie chart. Wait for that to load. I don't know why it's taking time. Okay, wait for that to load. Okay, why is this taking time? The stuff is hanging. I have a lot of programs running. So, mm, okay, just bear with me. I don't know why my laptop is hanging.
No issues at all. Sorry, could you, I mean, where did you, um, can you run through in 1 minute where you got the slides up from?
You have to give me a moment. My laptop is hanging at the moment, so okay. Eh, uh, uh, um, I have to. Okay, so let me just remove that chat. I don't know why it's hanging that way, but so just to put in the slicer, we already know that this is a table, right? So since this is a table already, the best thing we can do is no need to transform it or to change it into a table again, right? So Excel already recognizes it as a table. So what I just have to do is come to insert and I will see slicer here. So once I click on slicer, I can select the type of slicer I want to bring in. Right? I can select any type of slicer. So why I'm selecting these three is because they are short, they are not long. Department has a lot of information in it. Right? Job title probably has a lot of information. Let me see for department. So I think department has probably a lot of information in it. Okay. Let's also use department. So if I'm inserting department, because of it's so long and it might not show me all the departments we have there, I can come to size and properties, then go to position and layout and just increase the number of columns. So now I can see that it has different number of columns there. I can reduce this to 2. So it can be this long and fitted. So I don't need to have to scroll down. I can see all the departments inside. So when I click on sales, it shows me only the information for sales in this table, right? And I click on services, it showed me only people in the services department. I click on, let's say, engineering, it shows me only people in the engineering department, right? Only people in the engineering department. That's how we are seeing everything this way. Okay, so that's how to bring in a slicer. So if I click on this cancel here, it removes the slicers I have already put into effect. Okay, then to bring in our chart, I think I'll just use a pivot table, right? To bring in our chart, I can just select the table I want to use for my pivot table and click on insert, which you guys already know. Then I've already selected the table range and I'll click on new worksheet. Why this is not working? Okay, bring this. Let me bring this into a new sheet. So, okay, so I'll click on table range and new worksheets. Why is it not working? So let me go back to the original table. Okay. I really don't know why this is not inserting pivot tables for me. Okay, let me use the already existing pivot table here. Okay, let me use the already existing pivot table to insert new ones. Right, so let's say I want to create, so I'm going to just delete this entire pivot table here. There's no need to have this here. And I'm going to delete. Okay. So let's say I want to do a chart for so I'm going to use this one to do a chart. Since you guys already know how to create a pivot table, I'll just go straight to visualization. How do we visualize this entire stuff we have here? Okay. So what we could do is we could, since we already have male and female, so let's say we want to visualize for the employees, we want to see employees born in a particular why isn't this copying? Okay, let me delete this pivot table and insert another one. Maybe it's because we have more than one. Uh, okay, I think I'll have to remove this. Let me just remove this and open it again. So, okay. Let me try to open that sheet again. I don't know why it's not. Okay, let me see if I can do that again. All right, so let's see. Insert pivot table and okay. So I think it's because it's not saved. So let me go through the process of bringing this into um so I want to go back to creating the slicers then, or I guess I will do the slicers in here. So let's say I want to build a chart. Let's assume for looking at the amount of the genders we have, right? Gender grouping we have. So I could take ID to values and gender to rows. Then I probably want to look at the race. So then I'll remove this and take race to rows. Okay, so how do I insert a chart for this? It's basically simple, right? Just insert, then go to recommended charts. So since we have three categories here, now this is the idea. When you have more than four categories or more than five categories, I would advise more than 4. When you have more than 4 categories, don't use a bar chart. I mean, don't use a pie chart, right? When you have more than 4 categories, don't use a pie chart. It will make everywhere kind of clustered, right? The idea is to make your visual neat, right? So when you have more than 4 categories, don't use a pie chart. I would advise you use probably a bar chart or something else that can accommodate that type of visual, right? So when you have more than 4 categories, use something else. A bar chart's recommended, right? But here we have 3 categories, so we can use a pie chart, right? I can just come here and click on 2D pie chart. So I have this here, okay? So it automatically shows me the sections for each gender group. So here we have female, we have male. We're still going to edit some of these things, right? It's showing us. We have female, we have male, and we have non-conforming. Then inserting for this, automatically we have more than 4 categories here, right? So the best idea would be to use a bar chart, okay? So we could use just a simple bar chart or a 3D column bar chart, but to make your visual less stressful for the eyes, people want to use very visualistic stuff, right? But the best type of visualization is minimalistic visualizations. So it's to click on this type of visual we have here. Then we can enlarge and leave it this way. Then let's assume we want to see something that has to do with months, right? I'm going to, so let's see, I don't know where you guys have the month. Okay, birth month, then I'll take this out here. So we want to see the amount of employees born in a particular month, right? I can just come here to insert, and here, instead of a bar chart, we could use a line chart. But in this case, for this particular data, a bar chart is better. But in the right sense, whenever you are visualizing something that has to do with time, that is time-based, I would always recommend you use a line chart. But here, a line chart will not help us because we're not looking at money. As we are looking at how much was made for each month, right? How much was made for each month. A line chart will be better because it shows us the trend line, right? It will look like this. It shows us the trend line. But because of here, we are just dealing with count. We want to look at the count, the number of people born in a particular month. It's advisable to just use a normal bar chart, right? It's advisable to use a normal bar chart because we are not really looking at sum. We're just looking at count. Okay. But if we were dealing with something that has to do with money, right? I would advise you use a line chart because it helps the person in looking at your business, whatever, to see the amount made for each month and how it has increased over time, right? That's the idea behind line charts. It just helps them see how something has increased over time. But here, we don't need to see how people's births count has increased over time because they were never even born the same time to even start with. Okay, so here we can just do counts. But assuming we're dealing with money, right? Or maybe count of subscribers, right? If we're dealing with count of subscribers, it shows us for that particular year, for the year 2024, how many subscribers, how did our subscriber count increase for each month, from one month to another. But here we cannot look at how people's births, because one, they were never born in the same day, and we cannot even view, the get count for 2024, it makes it the analysis will make no sense, right? So what we can use is a bar chart. Now, where does the idea of let me see if I can, where does the idea of making using sliders come into play, right? So let's assume we want to use sliders to kind of walk through this visualization. All I just have to do is come to the original table I have, then click on, I don't know, are you guys hearing me? Are you guys following through? Let me know if I'm talking to myself.
But I'm not seeing your cursor. Not
Okay.
seeing where your cursor is pointing.
Can you see my cursor dancing around now?
Yeah, now.
Okay. So I'll just click on insert, then bring in slicer, and let's say I want to select, let's see, male. Let's go to gender. Right. Let's see. Then I can copy this. I can copy this slicer and bring it here. So let's see if that takes effect. Okay, it doesn't even. So let me try to put that setting. Let's see. So using this insert out. So I'm going to use this pivot chart to just insert the slicer instead. Then gender. Okay. So let me see. That should work. Okay, good. So what this slicer does is now I want to now look at only information for only the female gender, right? So I'm going to, okay, let me delete this. Um, okay, let me do something really technical. And this data to data model. So okay. I'm going to explain what I'm doing now. I'm trying something out. Okay. Um, so from here. Okay, I don't know why it's not taking effect. Let's see, slicer setting. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, trying to see. I'm trying to see how I can use this slicer to kind of affect everything here, but mm, okay. Let's see. Okay, this is not working. Okay. Okay, let me see. I'm trying to see where the issue is coming from though. Oh, my laptop is hanging again. Okay, let me just go back to this. So let me redo this again. Okay, let me redo this again. Okay, so I just started from creating a pivot. I just started from creating, first of all, creating a pivot chart. First of all, creating a pivot table rather with the gender, right? So we're going to be doing something better than this probably in Power BI, but let me just explain the idea. So the question is, what type of visual do we want to create with, what type of visual do we want to create with this particular pivot table? The answer is quite simple. When you have less than 3 categories and you're trying to create a visual for categorical data, the best visual to use is pie charts, right? If you're trying to show probably a proportion of something or how different parts makes up a whole part, and the categories you have there are less than 4 or less than or equal to 4, the best way to do your visual is to use a pie chart. Why? Because if you should use a bar chart, if you should use a pie chart for something that is probably more than 4, you find out that everything becomes too clustered. Even you making the visuals, you won't even be able to see what you're trying to visualize, right? So the best idea when it comes to visualizing your data for less than 4 categories or 4 categories is pie charts. So if we have something more than 4 categories, for example, we have departments. For example, we have departments. The best idea is going to for us to use a bar chart. Why? Because if we should use a bar chart, for example, if we use a pie chart here, this is how clustered is going to be, right? And even some of the categories are lost inside this pie chart, right? But if we should use a bar chart for this particular visual, you find out that we can easily see everything, even though some are tiny. But when we put data labels on each of them, we can easily see everything. But for a pie chart, no matter how big you make your pie chart to be, some categories will still be lost, right? So the best approach is when dealing with more than 4 categories, is best to use a pie chart a bar chart rather. But when dealing with less than 40 categories, it's best you use a pie chart. Okay. Then what about for other charts? We have other types of charts here, right? We have line charts. So line charts deals with when we are dealing with trends over time, right? If you are dealing with trends over time, for example, the trend of or we are looking at how customers subscription have increased over a period of time, maybe over a period of 12 months in a particular year, you can use a line chart, right? This is what we mean by a line chart. So you can use a line chart, okay? Then if you're dealing with probably number of sales over a period of time, you can use a line chart. If you are dealing with if you are dealing with probably number of sales you made in 20 years, the best idea is to use a line chart because it not only shows you the amount of sales made in that particular year, it also shows you how it has increased from that particular year, maybe from 2020 to 20, from 2000 to 2024, right? It will show you how it has increased from 2000 to 2024. But if you're using a bar chart, you might lose sight of how it has increased. You might only be paying attention to the increments, right, in a particular year, the amount for 2020, the amount for 2024, the amount for 2023, and all that, right? But you might lose touch of how it has increased, how you can draw a trend line. And line chart helps you in forecasting. You can easily forecast what will happen in the next 10 years based on what has happened in the last 10 years, right? Then when we look at maps, maps basically is dealing with data that maybe if we are visualizing data for different countries, right? We use maps. Map just shows us the data point for each of these country, and we can put the amount that has been generated in each of these country if we are dealing with country data, right? It just helps us, makes it easy for us. Okay. Then if we're dealing with for example, we want to see maybe you're making visuals for, I don't know if any of us here has played a game, PlayStation game, and you're trying to fight with, you're trying to choose two different players, right? And you want to compare their abilities. This type of visualization helps us to do that. We call it sunburst, right? It helps us to show ability of a player, comparing it with another particular person. Then tree map just helps us to see how big a particular category is. We use this type for population or maybe population in a particular state, how big the population of a particular state is compared to another state. We use tree map. Then we have what we call scatter plots. Scatter plots is visualizations that we use to see the relationship between two or more variables or two or more columns, right? We use scatter plots. So if we want to see the relationship between two or more columns, we can use scatter plot to do that. It makes it easy for us. Okay. Then which one? Which other one again? I think that's basically all. Then also bar chart. Bar charts, we have different types of bar charts. We have the 3D bar charts, we have 2D bar charts, but I'll always recommend you use 2D bar charts. Is either you're using it turned this way or you're using it in the normal view, right? The 3D bar chart just makes everything kind of complicated, right? Especially if you're not doing data science, right? We data scientists, we use 3D bar chart to look at dimensions of things, right? But for data analysts, I'll always recommend you use a 2D bar chart. So if we were to visualize, for example, were to visualize, let's say, where's the bet month? Yeah, were to visualize the bet month for this particular data, right? Instead of us assuming that because of its a time-based data or because it has to do with months, we can use line charts. No, the idea is what are we actually trying to communicate? Here, we are only trying to see um, the amount of people born in a particular month, right? So it will only make sense for us to use a bar chart. But if we're looking at the amount of sales for a particular month, instead of a bar chart, we are going to be using a line chart, right? If we're dealing with the amount of sales for a particular month or for that particular month, we're using the line chart. But here we are just looking at the amount of, because there's no other thing to communicate rather than looking at amount of employees that were born in a particular month, maybe for the human resource department, so that they can easily plan birthdays for people and know how much they will spend. Right here now, if they were guessing, they know that they are going to spend more in the month of March for birthdays, then followed by October, then followed by July, maybe January, December, and all that. They will spend less in February, right? It just helps them plan. But they cannot use a line chart to see what is the trend of birth months, because a particular employee born in December, or if you have few employees born in December, you might find out that these employees are the youngest in the company or probably the oldest in the company. So the line chart will not communicate anything meaningful. But the bar chart will do the communication for anything meaningful, because it just tells us how to plan, right? The amount of employees in a particular um, the amount of employees born in a particular month, and tells us how much we are likely to spend if we decide to celebrate the birth dates of these employees, right? Or the birthday of these employees. Okay, so for this particular visualization, we can find out that here we're going to be using a pie chart. Here we can use a bar chart and also a bar chart for this place, right? Then if we're looking at every other type of column, we'll find out that every other thing is just a bar chart or a pie chart, right? A bar chart or a pie chart. Location states might likely be, let's remove this month. Location states will likely be a bar chart because it has more than 4 categories. Then location city is definitely going to be a bar chart because we have more of them here, right? We have many of them here. So if we were to do this, we'll probably just include a pie chart, and probably instead of visualizing this using location city, we can just visualize this using location states. Then what we can do is, using location state, we can now come here and draw out a table for it, which means if we are visualizing the location state, let me just make an example. And we make a quick stuff here. Then I can bring in the location state here and make a quick visual using a bar chart, right? So if I'm looking at the location state here, I can know that, okay, in Illinois, is Ohio is probably the highest, right? 18,000. We have probably more cities in, we have more population of employees coming from Ohio. Then we know that is the highest here. Using the table, we can now use the table to find out the amount of states for Ohio, right? Or we can draw out, bring out a slicer. So let me go to insert. We can insert a slicer based on what I was discussing before, and just say, okay, let's see. Um, location city. Right. So let's see. Okay. I think I would want to use, so let me use location state instead. So since Ohio is the highest and we have a lot of states here, right? Rather than scrolling down and all that, we can just click on Ohio. It just separates everything for us. So Ohio being the highest state here from this our visual, right? What we can do now is we can go ahead and start filtering based on every other state we have, right? If we want this to take effect here, what I can do is I can delete this visual and then use this to do my visualization, right? So I can just come here and insert, then choose Ohio alone. So it shows me the visualization for Ohio state alone, right? Ohio as a state alone. Then I can cancel this visualization and simply remove. I don't know why this is not showing me. I don't know why this is not showing me for. So I'm trying to filter it based on states for that particular state. So let me remove this. Okay, so basically what I'm just trying to do is we can use filter to play around the data, right? It's more better in Power BI. That's why I prefer Power BI for visualization. Excel can be a little bit complicated, right? We can use this filter to play around. We can use this filter to play around our visualization, right? We want to see only the states in Illinois. We can filter and it just shows us for only Illinois, the cities in Illinois, right? We want to see only the city in Indiana. We can play around just by clicking Indiana. It shows us only the cities in Indiana, just like this, right? It shows us only the cities in Indiana. Then we can choose Kentucky. It shows us only the cities in Kentucky. We have just 4 cities there, right? So by clicking each of these, we can just switch to this only the cities in that particular state, right? If we go to Wisconsin, it shows us only the cities in that particular state we are clicking, right? So probably we don't really need to have this one here, right? So if I cancel all this, it then shows us the entire cities we have rather than the states. Right. So the idea is just basically to so if I click on expand here, expand shows me the entire fields, which doesn't really make sense. But if I reduce it here, it shows me the states, right? Then I can now select the state I want to see. Let's assume I want to see for Michigan, right? And I select it. It shows me, okay, no. And I select it here. It shows me only the states for Michigan, right? Then what I can then do is unselect this, and I want to see the entire cities in Michigan. I can expand this to show me all the cities, then come to Michigan and just select. It's showing me all the cities in Michigan. If I want to view the entire state back, I can unselect this slicer we've just done here and collapse entire field. It shows me for the entire state rather than having those two, what they call it, pivot tables we had before, right? So I can use this slicer to edit my table or I can use this one to expand and collapse if I want to. Right, so I'm going to go through this again so that it follows a logical flow. I'm going to delete this. So let's assume, each city is located in a particular state, right? If we look at our table here, we'll find out that we have location. Let me see where location is. We have location city and location state. Now, each of these cities are located in a state. So we can have 5 cities in a particular state. So how do we now visualize it if we're having something like that? Right? The idea is just to do our pivot table, right? And make sure that we have location, city, and location state inside our pivot table. So I'm going to remove department. Knowing that cities are inside a state. So the best idea is to bring state first and then cities under it. That is the logical sense, because we want to be able to collapse the city and we want to be able to collapse the states with the cities inside it. So that being that, the next thing we want to do is we want to insert a slicer for location states, right? So that we can easily wiggle through the states however we want to. Then I'll bring in that slicer. The next thing we want to do now is to insert our pivot chart, because we want to be able to visualize these cities and these states and the cities inside them. So I'll click on the bar chart here. Now we know that there are cities inside each of the states, right? So if I wanted to view the cities, now our view here is in the city view. If you look at it, we have a lot of them. It's not really conducive for the eyes. So our view here is in the city view. If I want to change our view to state view, I will just collapse this. It's now in state view. Here is collapsed. But if I expand this, it will be in, if I expand this, it will be in city view, right? But if I collapse this, it will be in a state view, which means we can see all the states for each of them there, right? Now, if I expand this, and let's say I want to see all the cities in Kentucky, all I just have to do, after expanding, all I just have to do is come to Kentucky in the slicer here and click on Kentucky. It shows me the cities in Kentucky, which we have here, right? And we also have them here, right? Just to make it orderly, I can sort it by okay. I can sort it by descending order using count of ID, right? So that just makes sense for me. Then I can also sort this. Can I sort this? Okay, so I'm going to, let me remove this. Okay, you just sorted this states, right? So if I want to view the cities in, let's say, Wisconsin, I can expand it to city view and click on Wisconsin, right? So it just shows me the number of states or number of cities we have in Wisconsin, right? Then if I want to take it back to my city view, I will just unselect Wisconsin by clearing this filter we did here and take it back to state view, right? So we can see all the states and we can see the states in descending order, which is from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois. The last one is Wisconsin. And if you look at it here, the values here just shows us how true that is, right? Then we can choose to wiggle through as we want to, or whatever the case might be. Okay. Then we can also, so I don't know, before I try something else, do we have any question?
Not for me.
Okay, I don't know if Ify and Gracious were Gracious and Ify, do you guys have any question? Okay. So I'm trying to see if we can insert a slicer for the male. Let's see gender. So okay. So we want to use a slicer to see the amount of gender in each for each location, or the want to see the amount of females coming from the Ohio location or or from each of the states basically. So I'll just click on slicer. I'll make sure that this is selected. This particular one is selected. Click on slicer and I'll go and select gender, right? Then okay. So that inserts the gender slicer for me. Then now I want to check the amount of female employees we have in each of these states. So all I just have to do is click on female. That tells me that, so if I unselect it, we see that the figure increased, and I click on female, we'll see that the values have changed. And it shows me we have 10,321 females in our employee list. And it now shows us the amount of this female gender coming from each of the states. If I select male, it does the same thing. We know that male is the highest, the amount of male gender coming from each of the states. Then if I unselect it, it goes back to what we have. Also, non-conforming have their values, right? So the more I click them, because of I selected this particular one, it affects this visual we have here, right? It affects this visual we have here. It doesn't affect any of these ones because the slicer is coming from this particular visual, right? So what I would have preferred to do is using the slicer to affect everything. That was how I was trying to do the table. I was trying to do the visual from the table itself, not from pivot charts. If we do the visual from the table itself and bring the slicer, it affects everything because the visuals data is coming from the entire table, not from a section of the table, right? That's the idea behind using your entire table to make a visual, right? It makes it easy that way, but my laptop was kind of hanging while doing that, right? So I'm just going to unselect this. Then probably I want to insert another slicer and say, um, let's see, location. I want to see the amount of people that work remotely, right? So I can click on headquarters, right? So headquarters shows me, okay, right. Headquarters shows me that we only have people in Ohio working remotely. That's what I'm sorry, we have only people in Ohio working in the headquarters because none of these states were selected. It means that only people in Ohio are working in the headquarters. But if we choose remote, we will see that everybody works remotely, both people in Ohio. But for the headquarters, people working in the headquarters, we only have um, people in Ohio working in the headquarters, which means they probably have to come into the office. But for people working remotely, we'll find out that we have a lower section of people working remotely. Then if we also want to find out how many of those people working remotely are female, we can go ahead and click on that using the slicer. If we want to find out how many of them are in Illinois, we can find out and we can just expand the field based on the city and find out. So we can keep drilling down and keep drilling down, right? So I'm going to undo this slicer we have here, undo this effect here and undo this. So this returns our table to its original format, right? Because we have 18,000 people working or from Ohio working in the company, 18,000 people. And out of those 18,000 people, 1,310 works remotely. Why? For other states, they work remotely because definitely you cannot be traveling from Pennsylvania to go and work in Ohio. So that's why they give them the ability to work remotely or the chance, the opportunity to work remotely. Then from these people working remotely, we found out that we have 2,801 of them are males, 2,544 of them are females. Then 154 are non-conforming. But for the people working in the headquarters, 451 are not conforming. We have 8,487 of them working are males, while 7,777 of them are females, right? So we can keep drilling down and keep drilling down. And you can also do the same type of effects, right, for the departments and also for job titles. And we can keep on doing that type of slicer as much as we want to. But in this case, I'm only using the location state and the location city to make this happen. If we wanted to do the same thing for the department and job title, we know that department will come first, then job title will come second, just like we have for, let me cancel this, just like we have for here. Location state came first, location city came second. Here, we can have department coming first, then job title coming second, because every job title is inside a department, definitely. If they give you a job as a data analyst, you could be inside the engineering department, right? Or as a data scientist, business analyst, you could be inside the engineering department, right? So that's just the idea behind everything I'm doing, right? I don't know. Do you guys have any question?
No problem.
Ify and oh, they are not even online. All right. So what I'm going to send a particular data. This data I'm going to send, we have two parts, right? The data I will send to you guys, we have two parts. The first part has to do with the employees' information. So the company, I'm also going to send you guys kind of a an explanation of the problem, right? The company are having a lot of absenteeism issue, right? So the data comes in two parts. One part has to do with employees' information, right? It has a lot of information about the employees. The second part has to do with the reason why they were absent. Okay. The second part has to do with the reason why they were absent. So you guys will be using the DAX formulas to do a lot of cleaning. For example, the reason why they were absent were represented in numbers. You have to use the DAX formula. You have to use the DAX formulas to change these numbers to the name of the reason. And you definitely have to use if or if and. One of them has to, you have to go with one of them, anyone you want to do. Then you are going to see months. Months are represented in numbers. So you have to use a switch to change the months into name of months, right? Then you also have to use DAX formulas to change the seasons, because the seasons, you have to use the month number, right? To change the seasons inside name of seasons. Then when you go to the employees information, you're going to find out that the educational level of these employees have to be changed. They are represented in numbers. They have to be changed to let's say graduate, undergraduate. You're going to be getting a lot of this information. Then at the end of the day, after doing all those changes, you might have to clean. I don't know if there are empty cells there, but you might have to check if there are blank cells and replace them where necessary. Then after doing that cleaning, the next thing you want to do is you want to visualize the data. The where you are visualizing the data is in using the absenteeism reports. You know, there are two datas. We have the employee infos data and absenteeism data. Where you are doing your report is in the absenteeism data. You're going to be using the absenteeism data to do your report, right? If I say you guys to use both data sets, it will be complicated. So we're going to be using both data sets in Power BI. But for now, use the absenteeism data to create your report. Do any type of visualization you want to do. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be telling me why you chose this visual and explain your idea behind choosing the visual, which should be on Wednesday, right? So I don't know if that is, but I'm going to send you guys a file, a data card that explains all this, but I don't know if that's explanatory enough. Can you hear me?
Second.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, then. So I'm going to send you a data card that explains everything. Okay, data card is actually on the website, right? It explains everything. But I'm going to direct you guys to where it is in particular. So just this visual alone is just explanatory visual, right? I don't want to tell you how to go ahead to make your own visual. You can choose any way you want to make your visual, but at the end of the day, whatever approach you're using, you're going to explain it to me and tell me why you are using that approach, right? Your approach is not wrong. Any approach you choose to use is not wrong, but I would like to understand why you are using that approach or why you are choosing to explain it in this way or why you're choosing to make this particular visual. I'm going to tell you guys the amount of visuals you're going to do, right? And any other information, I'll pass it on the group to you guys, right? So concerning what you guys are meant to do, is there any question you might want to ask regarding that so that I will know?